in today's video I am painting the city's eye. It's the fifth painting in the Great Eyes series of painting. And the concept for this one is that the eye of a city is a park. Now the initial plan was for a park to be in the middle of some horrific highway system, a junction, and really spaghetti. But I ended up not doing that. I felt like the painting would then be way too gray, way too I wouldn't say oppressive, but it would not be a good looking painting in my mind. At least I wouldn't have been able to do the initial vision I had justice. So I shifted to making a park surrounded by weirdly scaled suburbia. It's not the same feeling at all, but it's a good enough. I think I made I was pretty successful in what I set out to do. Well, no, not what I set out to do, since I changed my plan, but the change of plan was necessary. The initial plan was just too difficult. So here I started by making the grass of every surface that needs grass. For that I had to figure out where the streets would go and where there would be houses. So I'm dividing up the terrains for the different households on these streets. And then after that I'm going to use a small paintbrush to paint the grassy areas, the yards of every houses. This tracing was really useful and needed. Basically, I figured out where each street would go, and also left myself some room for the sidewalks. And from there, I was able to basically just go with the flow. Like, I used this initial planning to figure out how many houses there would be, and I also took a picture at that point to choose which house would have which colored roof. That way I was able to spread them out, I wouldn't say randomly, but in a way that somewhat feels random, so I didn't have to it was a very structured painting. It was not nearly as random or as my previous ones. Most of my paintings so far have been things where the sizes of stuff doesn't really matter, where there's no structure all that much. So, but here, since there needed to be streets and these streets needed to have something on them, so I made houses. It was a very structured, planned project, and that's part of the reason why I initially wanted to make a impossibly complex highway system, because that would be that would replicate the fact that I didn't have really much structure in all of my previous paintings, but too much structure at the same time. Like, the ideal highway system I would have liked to make for this would have been would have had a lot of overpass, tunnels, and stuff that would be structurally complex to a level that would be not fun to do. So by choosing suburbia, I'm kind of just in the kind of middle ground between the extreme structure of the highway and the lack of structure of my previous paintings. It was a good middle point, I think, and I'm really happy about how it turned out. Here I'm painting the fences. I'm using a metallic black. The idea here was that they were all using chain link fences. Initially, I wanted to use white paint to make a white picket fence, but then I would have liked to have lines to split the pickets or the white pickets fence, and that was not realistic. So chain link it is, and chain link is more, I don't know, rough than a white picket fence. It captures a bit more the feeling of what I wanted with the highway. Like the idea of the highway surrounding the park was that the park was inaccessible and it was ridiculous and it was oppressive, which, yeah, it would have been a good painting, but here, by having fully uniform chain link fences like that, it captures some of that oppressiveness. It makes it feel like kind of a prison of sorts, but then the park becomes actually usable by something, so it makes a bit more sense, let's say. Not that art has to make sense, but in this case, I felt like making something that has some small amount of sense in parts. The scale of everything is really wildly ridiculous. The houses are tiny, the roads are massive, but kind of tiny also. It's all out of whack, but I don't know. I like it. There's some charm to having it that ridiculously out of scale. I find it funny. So here I'm using a different type of black paint. I think everything else was acrylic, but this is gouache. It's similar, but it's not. Yeah, it says tempera gouache. I don't know. I know it's a different type of paint, but what the actual difference is, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I was using it because it's a very deep and powerful black, let's say. So it felt right for asphalt. Here, imagining that the whole street system was painted with was recently renovated with fresh asphalt, of course, because asphalt tends to fade and be in patches. But I didn't have the patience to do this kind of patterning. So fresh asphalt everywhere it is. In here you can see more the lines of where the sidewalk is meant to be. Once I'm done making the asphalt, I'm going to be using the same black that I'll mix with one of my whites to make a light gray sidewalk. Think cement. It's not. It's a different shade of gray, lighter gray, but it's not a. I don't know. It won't be that obvious on camera. From what I able to tell, the gray of the sidewalks doesn't translate that well into video. It's a known fact at this point for me that the real painting is very different than the one we see on video. It's a something with the lighting or the quality of the camera that shifts all the colors. Yeah, here I'm starting to paint the sidewalks, but the difference from the white on video is fairly small, but it works. And here I've put the rest of the black I had into the gray to make a much darker gray to use as a different type of cement, I think, for the eyelids. There is a concept for the eyelids that will appear later once I've drawn the lines, but this darker gray surrounding the suburbs felt like a way to bring back some of the oppressiveness that the initial highway plan had. The eyelids won't be highways. I'll tell you later once the lines are drawn there to explain how I came about this concept. But here I am painting the houses. Basically, I just made small rectangles of 3 different colors: purple, red, and yellow, to just make different colored roofs. I didn't bother trying to make paths or parking lots for the houses. They just a yard, a house, and if I had enough room, a blue dot to make a pool. But these are really bare households. There's just not much there. And here to choose where to put the houses, basically I chose everywhere a purple house would be, making sure no purple house touched another house. Then I just put some red houses by trying to avoid 2 red houses touching, but not with as much care as I did with the purple houses. And then every other house that was not yet built, painted, would be a yellow house. This specific house is larger. There's 2 rectangles. It's the rich house. They have room for a more complex house and a pool. There's just one house that I made more detail like this. Just it felt right to have a one different from everything else. It's a bit more striking. It's more, I wouldn't say alive. It's not the right word, but I feel like it fits. And like I was saying earlier, at this point when I'm painting the houses, I'm not figuring out where the houses would go live. I had a picture I'd taken and drawn on the side as reference for where I planned the houses to be. I was just executing the plan at that point. With the exception of the pools. The pools I just added very randomly with my guts. If I felt like there was enough room, if I felt like there were too many pools in a certain area, in a certain zone, then I would stop putting pools there, and it was more of a gut feeling than actual planning for the pools. To paint the pools, I just used the tip of a paintbrush's handle that I dipped into blue paint and just pressed it against the painting to make a not a perfect circle, but as close to it as I could. And here I'm starting to paint the street lines. I'm starting with all of the stop lines at the intersections. That way I'm able to think more of the flow of the streets, so to speak, how the flow of the traffic. And I didn't really follow any rules. I just added at least one stop line at every intersection, most of the times more than one. And from there, I imagine that people would be able to cross sidewalk to sidewalk either at a stop line or a bit before, a bit after, or if there was a place where I hadn't put a stop line, then I put a crosswalk by just making lines that cross like this. And I put quite a lot of crosswalk. It felt I needed every zone to feel like they could access the park, and I did multiple passes on the crosswalks to make them more bright. And here I'm just connecting the stop lines with dashed yellow lines, which really makes it come together. Before then it was kind of I wasn't really sure how it would turn out, but adding street lights really ties it all together well. Now, I'm not someone that has a driving permit, so a driving license, I mean, so I don't really know how realistic the street lines are. That's not something I pay attention to most of the time. Like, yes, I use the streets for when I walk, when I'm on the bus, but I don't really need to pay attention to the street lines all that much. I do, but not enough to know if what I've done is that realistic or not. And here I'm going to explain the concept for the eyelids. When I was painting the houses, it was kind of bugging me that all the houses were right on the street like this, but had no parking. It just felt weird. So I said, well, what if the eyelids are just really strange, really horrific parking lots? So, and the lines of the parking that just on the edge of the suburbs could look kind of like eyelashes. So that, and then once I thought about the parking lot being eyelashes, it just was natural to do it that way. It felt like the only choice. It was not the only choice. I could have done other things, but it was really too funny to pass up, to me at least. So yeah, the lines that are close to, that serve the eyelashes, I tried to make it vaguely reasonable. The scale is still out of whack, but then I just added other nonsensical parking spots that just don't make sense with how the eyelash is and really inefficient. Because of perspective and things, I kind of imagine the eyelid to be some kind of weird raised parking lot high above the suburb that just blots out the sun and things. So it's making it as strange as possible. Felt really funny. I got a kick out of painting this one. Well, I always have fun painting, but this one felt particularly funny to me. And here I'm making the park, which I kind of made the eye of an eye of an eye. Like at the center of the park, I placed a pool that I could have made another painting called The Eye of the Park, where there's a massive fountain at the middle of, a park. So it's kind of weird. There's kind of two eyes in this painting, the way I tend to see it. So yeah, so I made a fountain, basically a blue dot with a tiny metallic dot in the center and surrounded by metallic paint. And then I made a path from the crosswalk to the fountain by making a kind of a spiral from each crosswalk that reached the park. And from there, I just connected each path together, kind of randomly. Not exactly, but I made curved paths that felt right. And then to make it make sense that people would follow those paths and not go straight, I then added a bunch of trees by making splashes of a deep green. I think the bottle calls it hunter green or something like that. I would have to check, but that's not really important. And yeah, so people follow the path because they don't want to hurt the trees and stuff. That's the lore, at least. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. There's not much else to say about the process here. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to come by whenever you want. Bye.